So I want to do the same workout that we did on Wednesday. If you were there for that, great. Gives you a second opportunity to just perfect some of the form on the exercises. If you weren't there, make sure you have a set of dumbbells before we begin, as they just add a little extra resistance to some of the exercises. With that, let's go ahead and get into backward lunges. So alternating step back. Here we go. Try to stay nice and upright. You notice I have my hands on my hips. You certainly can have your hands on your hips as well. Just nice and level here. The reason my hands are on the hips, I would suggest you have your hands on your hips, is it'll indicate whether or not your hips are tilting forward while going into the bottom of the lunge. So try to keep your hips as square as possible, so this is not happening as you're stepping back. And again, just hands on the hips, ensuring level plane as you go through your lunges. Let's shift this to a curtsy lunge. So a little more stretch is happening through the back of the hip on this one, and you still want to maintain that level hip position. So I am actually rotating the hips slightly into that front leg as I'm stepping back here. Try to just stay nice and vertical through the spine so I'm not tilting. You're not tilting as you're going through these. Let's do one more on each side, and then we'll do a step back with an overhead reach. And then now step back, overhead reach. Try to keep the arms nice and straight. Obviously my hands, your hands, are not on your hips anymore. So you still want to try to maintain that neutral hip position, but now adding obviously the arms coming up overhead. So a little more dynamic here, involving a couple more muscles through the upper body, but same idea, same principles through those hips, up the spine, all neutral. Let's do two more here, and then we're going to just reverse the arms last. So now the arms will stay up, and then when you step back, bring them down into shoulder extension. So there's a little swing on my arm. You might have a little swing too, but you still want to feel the upper back muscles engage as you're bringing the arms up here, and especially when they're back here. So really kind of squeeze the shoulder blades, those scapular muscles, kind of nice and tight along the flanks of the spine. Again, just warming up all the major muscle groups of the body here. Let's do two more. And then one more. And let's go into some butt kicks. Let's continue to drive that heart rate up just a little bit. It does help you get into that workout a little more efficiently if you can get that heart rate kind of spiked just initially in the workout. And then some high knees. Here we go. Drive those knees way up, hip height at least. So if you need to challenge yourself a little bit to get those knees up, do so please. I do want that heart rate to come up a little bit. We'll do a couple more here and then back to those butt kicks. And how about some butt kicks? You can see from the side, heels up to the butt. Heels all the way up to the butt. And we'll do some high knees. Way up. Go ahead and put those hands on those hips again. We'll do another round of the backward lunge. So try to bend the back knee as we're going through the lunges here. Oftentimes I'll cue the lunge with a bent back knee. That just stretches through that back quadricep muscle a little more effectively. So just think about that. And then make sure, again, the hips are staying in that neutral position and they're not tilting forward as you're stepping back. You get a little better glute engagement if you can keep the hips in a level position. Make sure you are pushing through that heel. Let's do one more on each side and then we'll do those curtsies. Last one here, now curtsy. Once again, try to maintain level hip position. It's a little more challenging to do on this one since there's more stretch happening through that back of the hip on that front leg. But even so, upright spine, try to stay neutral through the hip. There's going to be a little cant, a little bit, but you're trying to correct for that as much as you can. And again, that's why I'm encouraging you to have your hips or your hands on your hips here. Let's do one more on each side. And then we'll do that step back with overhead reach. So bring the arms up. You'll notice my arms are nice and straight on this. Try to match me. You want straight arms as well. That just stretches through those upper back muscles a little more effectively. Really, really important as we're going to be doing kind of a lot of shoulder work, shoulder mobility stuff today. And if you can just engage those muscles early on, get them a little more limber, loosened up, that'll perhaps make the actual exercises a little more effective. Let's do two more here. One, and then two, and then now we'll cross the arms into the lead leg. So as I step back, cross the arms into the lead leg. Try to still remain nice and upright through the torso. Try to keep your shoulders forward. Try to keep your hips forward. So really now stretching through the hip. Let's do one more on each side. And then we'll do the shoulder extension. So now bring your arms all the way up. And then as you step back, Squeeze the shoulder blades back and down. One more on each side. And then last one here. And we'll do another quick round of butt kicks. Here we go. Drive those heels all the way up. Nice and light on the feet. Continue to get that heart rate up just a little bit. And then how about some high knees? And we'll do one more butt kick. And then some high knees. And that is good. So we're going to start off with some bodyweight series here. You'll be on your back in a supine position. So start in a Deadbug position with an opposite arm and leg reach. Idea is to keep your spine in a nice flat position. So as I'm extending the left leg with a flexed foot, I'm extending my right arm back and then alternating sides. Go ahead, join. So as you are doing this, I do want you reaching firmly through the heel of the front foot. Now, as you reach through the heel, you'll notice the back of the calf muscle, the hamstrings will actually stretch just a little bit more, and that's good. But because they're stretching a little more, the foot is more likely to evert out, to rotate out. You need to do your best. So as you extend through that leg, as you really reach that leg, flexing that foot, that heel, you need to make sure that the ankle does not rotate open. Likewise, you want to make sure that the ankle, I'm going to shift out here, you just keep going. You want to make sure that the ankle does not supinate. It's a little thing, but it's actually a big thing because the supination of the foot does affect how you engage the muscles up the chain into the hip. So as you extend those legs, again, you want to make sure that the foot is super level. Like if you were standing, you'd be flat on your foot. So as you reach, you are still very flat on your feet. You got 10 seconds here, and I'm actually going to get into the next, but you finish up here. Let's do one more on each side for you. We finish that there. I'm now in a quadruped position. So I'm on my knees, I'm on my palms. It's an opposite arm and leg reach, but now with a pointed toe. So much like we were, but just now pointing the toe. I'm going to talk about the shoulders here in this. Go ahead, join if you haven't already. So as I'm reaching my arm, you might be tight to the upper back muscle, and you might find it kind of limiting with how high you can lift the arm without having to compensate through the head. I need you to be mindful of that. You want to keep the head back as you raise the arm and not rotate. That's going to force the stretching through the rotator cuff, particularly those lateral muscles of the rotator cuff. So really tune into that. What is happening with your head here? I'll talk about the legs in the next series through. Let's go 20 more seconds though. But as you reach up, think of your shoulders staying, again, level with the floor, parallel with the floor. They're square with the floor. Again, you're not rotating the shoulder. It's the muscles through here that are activating and lifting that arm up. But again, the head does not fall forward in that process. Do one more on each side. I'm going to flip back onto our backs here in a Deadbug position. So go ahead and join me now if you haven't. So keep your shins parallel with the floor with your feet flexed. We're doing a top half crunch. So it's a thoracic flexion exercise. Up and down. Go ahead, join if you haven't already. Now I do want you pulling your abs in here as you reach your arms up. Now, as you reach your arms up, the arms are not coming forward. The idea is that the arms just stay straight up, or they lift straight up, remaining vertical with the floor the entire time. So your shoulder joint will actually open subtly. You can see that here. As I lift up, you'll notice the shoulder is more open in this position than it is this position. It does make it a little harder because you are opening a lever, you are lengthening that lever. But again, it also is going to force a little more contraction through the abdominal region. So just something to think about as you pull the abs in, you're just lifting the arms straight up and not letting them collapse forward. I know you want to, but don't do that. Let's do one more here. Very nice. Okay, and then we're going to drop down, bring your body into a corpse pose, and we're just going to hang out here. So as you flatten yourself to the floor, I want you to reach your heels, flex your feet, reach your heels firmly to the wall. Now pull up on your kneecaps and then draw your abs in. And if you can, slightly tuck your hips under. Now, likewise, the feet, make sure that they're in a neutral position and not supinating, not everting out. Like I said, that does affect up the chain into the hips. So with, again, those neutral feet, pulling up on those kneecaps, drawing those abs in, slight tuck under with the hips. Make sure you're taking your fingers and reaching them towards that wall away from you. And then squeeze your shoulders back and take the crown of the head and reach it that way. I know we're just lying on the floor here, but this is actually fairly involved. I'm still trying to do traction of the entire spine. So again, the flatter we can get to the floor, the better the stretch that will occur through the body. All right, we're going to get back on our feet. Nope, I'm sorry. We're at supine position. doing that opposite arm and leg reach. So go ahead and now extend on the left with the right arm and then opposite side. So let's talk about the shoulders just a little bit here. So as you're reaching the arm back, you'll notice when the arm gets close to the floor, it likewise likely wants to drive out, and the elbow wants to bend, and the wrist wants to bend. Again, I want you to be aware of these things and make sure that you're maintaining the proper length relationships through the chain of the upper back. Obviously, the lower body, we already discussed that. So again, as you reach that arm back, make sure the elbow stays straight. But as you go back too, it's a little thing, but it's important. You keep the shoulder down, right? So the shoulder's not coming up. I mean, in terms of like elevating up, it's not protracted. You need to keep the shoulder depressed as the straight arm flexes back to the floor. The goal is to get close to the floor. Let's do one more on each side. Draw the abs in. And then let's flip over into that quadruped position. So we're here. Again, palms directly underneath the shoulders, but now pointed toe as you reach. Pull the abs in. Make sure that head stays in a nice neutral position and you're not shifting through the shoulders. Now let's talk about the low body on this. So as I'm reaching here, like with the shoulders, it's important that the hips do not, I'll show you on this side here, the hips do not rotate open. So as I extend, for instance, this right leg back, I actually want to think about pushing the right hip down slightly. If you don't do that, likewise, you are going to get that subtle rotation, but then that'll affect the shoulders and they'll rotate as well. Think of your spine and your legs being in the same mechanics as they were when you had the benefit of the floor. But now you don't. So you have to use a little more of that thoracic muscle strength, lumbar region strength to stabilize your hips as you roll in to this extension. Now really aggressively point through that toe. That'll just enhance the stretch to the front of the shin. Let's do one more here. All right, let's go flip over onto our back. We've got that flexion now. So we are here, and that's that top half crunch with a subtle opening of that shoulder joint. Pull the abs in. Try not to even bend the elbows on this one too. You'll notice as the arms lift up, they're probably going to want to kind of collapse. I want you to maintain the proper length relationships, which means a straight, stacked arm, straight arm, as you do the lifts. Is it harder that way? Yes, it is. But it's also more effective. So try to just relax the low body. Again, I don't have a mirror here, so I'm kind of guesstimating my shins being parallel. I assume you're doing that as well. But one thing you want to ensure is that you can kind of see that the heels are not dropping. You're keeping the heels up. Because again, you want shins parallel with the floor as you're lifting. Why? Because it's going to engage those quadricep muscles. It's going to strengthen those muscles as well as the inner thigh, the adductor muscles. A couple more here. And then make sure on the lift that the heels are not collapsing in as the knees bow out. You don't want that. Keep your legs in your lanes. Let's do one more here. And now that corpse pose. So go ahead and flatten yourself out. So with the heels, reaching towards the wall away from you. Pull up on the kneecaps, because that'll flatten the back of the leg to the floor. If you don't feel the back of your legs on the floor today, not the end of the world. But the goal, eventually, is to literally feel your entire body just flatten itself to the floor. And you should be able to flatten yourself to the floor without like any muscular tension. But the reason I'm adding muscular tension right now is because most people can't fall flat to the floor in a relaxed state because their stretch tolerance through their kinetic chain isn't so great. But again, these exercises, these activities do improve with that. So about 20 more seconds here. Reach through your heels, pull up on your quads, draw your abs in, tuck your hips under, hands towards the wall while squeezing your shoulder blades, and then reach the crown of the head towards the ceiling, the wall behind you with a slight tuck of the chin. And just hold for a moment. Make sure the feet stay level. All right, go ahead, come out of that. We're going to grab our dumbbells here. So on our feet, we have an alternating forward lunge. So dumbbells just at your sides here, and then stepping forward and pushing back. Go ahead, join, obviously alternating sides. So a forward lunge is a little more taxing than a backward lunge, just simply because the muscles are stretching under tension, or more muscles are stretching under tension. Typically makes an exercise a little more challenging. Likewise, that's why I like a shoulder press. Oftentimes a lot harder than, say, pulling something towards you. It's because of the muscles are stretching under tension versus shortening under tension. Doesn't mean it's any necessarily more effective or better or worse. It's just a different muscle action. But even so, you want to make sure that your mechanics, I'll show you from the side here, as you're stepping forward, they still remain much the same as they would if you were stepping back. Again, that'll just ensure the proper muscle length relationships as you're going through the movement. So As I'm stepping forward, you got about 15 more seconds here. Think about pushing through the heel of your foot. You're going to notice everything wants to shift forward onto the toe. That's going to pull you forward. We're trying to strengthen the posterior chain here. You got 5 seconds, so keep the weight through the heel. Last one. That's good. Now, standing tall, just a little shoulder abduction. So feet facing forward, just make sure shoulders are down on this. Draw your abs in, squeeze your glutes, squeeze your inner thighs. So those are your anchor points. And then flexing straight arms up while really, really pulling the abs in. That's really, really important. When you draw your abs in, you create that lift, you create that extension through that lower thoracic and into the lumbar, this region here. So if you have a tendency to tilt, I don't know if you have a mirror, you can even kind of self-assess yourself. If your spine looks like this, where you just kind of fall into this forward anterior tilt of the pelvis, and you have excessive extension here, these abduction exercises are super beneficial for you. We're going to go 15 more seconds. So pulling the abs in causes that length, that stretch, which will release the spine, which will release unnecessary tension. And in time, it'll actually change the way your gait is. It'll change the way you sit. And it'll just change the way how your muscles can release and relax. All good things. All right, so we're going to do an overhead squat. A little more challenging exercise. Separate your feet a little wider than hip width. Turn your toes out slightly with your dumbbells in hands. Arms come up and squat down and back up. So you'll notice my squat here was pretty shallow. I did that intentionally because if I demonstrate a full squat, people tend to follow. But as you go real low, likely what's going to happen is you're going to want to start falling forward. Talk about this all the time when we do through exercises. You want to remain as upright as possible. Again, that just forces better lengthening through the spine, but it also engages the muscles a little more. It is harder to stay upright than it is to fall forward because you have muscles that are stretching under tension, kind of like that forward lunge we just did. Not to say that it's like more effective or it's better, it's just highly beneficial for lengthening the body at the same time as strengthening the body. So again, wrists straight, elbows straight, head back, shoulders down, sit back. Let's go 15 more seconds here. And again, make sure that low back is not arching, because if you're arching, you're probably going too low. It's okay if your squat looks like this. It's fine. Even if it's more shallow than that, even if it's just this, that's fine. Keep your abs drawn in. Again, when your pelvis is neutral, let's do one more squat here. You're going to get better engagement of the glute. Go ahead, bring your arms down. Let's do those forward lunges. So let's keep moving. This is actually a fairly challenging block here since we're using all the major muscles of the body. Oh. Now think about your feet staying forward in their lanes. While you might not be able to kind of see the back foot as you're doing your lunges here, you want to make sure, I'll show you from the front here, you want to make sure that the back foot is not turning out. It's a little thing, but the foot turns out, you disengage the upper inner thigh. And again, that changes how the low back in particular is being pulled on and how that's being engaged. When your legs stay forward right now, we're just optimizing, again, the length relationships that we keep discussing. So it's just something to think about. And then pushing through the heel as you're stepping back. Again, your quadricep is going to be working hard regardless, but by pushing through the heel, you're going to get a slightly better engagement of the hamstring muscle as well as that glute muscle. Let's go 10 more seconds here, and we'll do those standing shoulder abductions again. Again, just stay nice and upright, pulling the abs in, slight tuck under. Good. So now abduction, feet in their lanes, facing forward, draw your abs in, squeeze your glutes, squeeze your upper inner thighs, shoulders down, flex your arms up. Very good. Now make sure the head does not come forward on this. I don't know if you can see my arms entirely in the frame, but you probably get the idea. Again, from down here, the wrists stay straight, the elbows stay straight. As you lift up, you're going to get to about here. Your shoulders are going to want to come up. Your arms are going to want to come forward. I know this. Don't let that happen. Keep your shoulders back. Keep your arms wide. So if I were to look at you, so imagine you're here, me, and I were to look at you from the side here, I would see you in the same plane the entire time. Draw your abs in. Think of yourself getting skinnier as you're doing this exercise. Let's go 10 more seconds. Just squeeze your glutes, squeeze your upper inner thighs, abs in, shoulders down, elbows straight. Good, overhead squat. Widen the feet out just a little bit. Arms all the way up. Keep your wrists straight. And sitting back into that squat. Now again, as you sit back, you're likely going to want to arch the low back. Don't do that. So again, shallow up the squat if that's you, if that's what you have to do. Be mindful that your knees are also tracking with your feet. As people squat here, as they increase range of motion meaning how low you go, things start to occur with compensations like the knees want to collapse in, or even the feet want to turn out excessively. Again, you want straight lines. If you think from your hip, that ball and socket joint all the way down to the foot, again, it's just everything would be in that same line. I do see that actually quite a lot as people squat down. They get excessively external rotation, eversion of that foot. I don't want that right now. Okay, just keep everything in their lanes. Okay, not necessarily going to hurt you, but it's not optimizing the length relationships through the ankle joint. And that works out the chain and that affects the hip. Let's do one more here. And that's good. Go and set your weights down. We're going to be on our stomachs for a Cobra extension. So for this, with your feet together, I want you to squeeze your legs together with pointed toes. We're just going to hold, kind of brace the legs together, and ideally trying to get the foot flat or the top of the foot flat on the floor as you extend up by a squeezing of the arms to the flanks of the body. Join if you haven't already. So as you lift, again, think about the shoulder blades contracting to help peel you off the floor. Now my arms aren't on the floor, but I've got nice mobility through that upper thoracic spine. It's taken actually a long time to get good at this because personally I find with working with clients and myself, the upper thoracic spine, you can think of like kind of through here, that's about the hardest area in terms of gaining or improving mobility, just in my experience. But even so, you can make large gains, not marginal gains, meaning big gains through this by just the repeated muscle contractions of trying to cause extension. That's what we're doing here, causing extension. What enhances that is if you push through your palms here at 10 more seconds, you squeeze the shoulder blades back and down, and you keep those shoulders from ever driving up. Don't let that happen. Now go ahead and bring your hands, palms to the floor. We're going to be doing an alternating leg extension. So just shifting to the low back, the hips. Try not to get it into your back. As you lift the leg, hold for a brief moment, and then lower back down. So I'm not lifting my leg very high here. And the reason is because I want to feel the front of my hip remain flush with the floor the entire time. So if you lift up and you notice that the ankle wants to not stay so straight and the knee likes to bend, you've probably gone too high. Likewise, if you lift and you notice that the front of the hip is no longer flush with the floor, you've also gone too high. Again, we're trying to do hip extension. So we're not pile driving into the low back. You can see here, if I just keep raising my leg, raising my leg, at some point, yeah, it's like lots of low back contraction. Not necessarily going to hurt me, but it's not what we're doing. So point being, shallow your range of motion so that you can just simply maintain flush hips as we lift up. Let's do one more. And then we're going to flip over onto our back. So I want you to drive actively. We'll start here in a dead bug position, just to frame us. And then we're going to extend our right leg with foot flexed and right arm back. Now we're going to just draw that left knee in and then left arm down. We're going to hold this position. So my arm is hovering right off the floor and my right heel, my right leg is hovering off the floor as I'm actively pulling in that left side. I mean, actively. So like draw that whole left knee in as far as I can, functional range of motion here, but without letting the heel move in midline more than the knee. If that's you, you've probably gone too far with this hip flexion. Just something to consider, something to think about. Another thing to think about is you want to keep, even though this right arm is back, you got 20 seconds here, you want to make sure the shoulder does not pop up. So you're still keeping the shoulder down. If I were to look over you, say I were to stand directly over you, I'd see straight lines between your shoulders and your hips. So go and let that go. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. So now the left side of the body. So I want you to left heel, flex it, reach that left heel this way. And then with your arms straight on that left side, squeeze your shoulder down. Make sure the elbow does not bend. And then actively pulling in that whole right knee towards the right shoulder, but making sure that the hip does not cant up. Because again, if I were to stand over you, I would see straight lines from your shoulders and your hips. And again, another little nitpick that I oftentimes see is as people try to drive that knee this way, the knee goes out and the heel moves in. Again, that's actually going to shorten the muscles through the back of the hip here. And we're trying to lengthen those muscles, the opposite of that. Go ahead and release that. We're going to go right back to the Cobra extension. Quick transitions on this one. We're going to go right into it. So as you lift up, it's important that you keep your ankles together. I want you to feel like your legs are helping to anchor your hips and your low back to the floor so we can really isolate in on that upper spine. Now again, you'll notice as I do this, I'm not using my hands. I don't need to. If that's you, if you need to, please do. Push through your palms, not your fingers. Push through your palms as you try to peel up. As you lift up, you need to make sure the shoulders do not shrug up. So you can see my neck actually remains in a lengthened position. It's not falling forward. If the neck falls forward, if the head falls forward, the shoulders are going to protract up. And that's going to limit that thoracic extension, the area of the spine that, again, I find most people have the most difficulty improving. All right, let's shift to the legs now. So point that toe. As you lift, make sure that the hips stay flush with the floor. It's really, really important. I want you to really, really, really point that toe. Now, as you point that toe, make sure, I'm going to show you here, make sure that on that lift, the leg does not turn open. Don't let that happen. So as you lift, can you even feel the upper inner thigh? If not, and you're pulling up on the kneecap, you'll not just feel the quadricep muscle, you'll feel all the way up into the connect chain, like towards the groin, because the adductor muscles, those upper inner thigh muscles, are engaging. Let's flip over onto our back. We've got that thoracic flexion. So hanging out here, bring the left side, we'll do the left side here first. Right arm back, and then right foot extend. So again, right side of our body is lengthening, as the left side of our body is contracting. Now, even though this right arm is back right now, I want you to think about squeezing your shoulder blades together and then pull your abs in. Let's get that entire spine as flat as possible. Now, how about the head and the neck? Are you here? Hopefully not. So take the crown of that head and reach it towards the wall behind you. Maybe a slight tuck of the chin. But what's going on with your right shoulder? Now, how about that knee, right? Is the knee going out? What about the ankle? Don't let the ankle move in midline. Don't let the knee go out. You have to hold these positions. It's harder, but it is more effective. Let's do the other side. So now flexing the left foot, drive the right knee in towards that right shoulder, bring the left arm back, holding, it's not on the floor, it's holding, so you're doing an isometric muscle contraction, so we're holding same length, and pull the abs in, make sure the head and neck are feeling nice and long, and while your arms are obviously moving opposite directions, you're still squeezing the shoulder blades, and then pull the abs in, make sure that that right knee is staying in the same lane as the right ankle joint. This is tough stuff. Even just holding these isometrics. I mean, my muscles are contracting. Like, I really feel it in my abdominals. I feel it to like the entire, this kind of like canister, if you will, like a cylinder through my spine. And that's something you want to feel too. You just want to feel like major muscle contractions to hold your spine as flat to the floor as possible. That's simply optimal. All right, we're going to come out of that. You're going to grab your dumbbells again. We have an L sit with a shoulder press. So I'm going to just get you right into this here with your dumbbells. Start overhead pressing. Now I'll just continue to cue. So we're going to have our feet together. Pull up on your kneecaps. Draw your abs way in and try to sit forward on your sit bones. If you look like this, you need to bend your knees because you're too tight through your lumbar. You are too tight to your hamstrings. Good news is exercises like this dramatically release tension through the back of the body so that in time, yes, this is like no resistance, no problem. I can just hang out here and shoulder press all day in an L sit. If you're not there yet, you simply bend the knees. But the cueing is the same. Squeeze your thighs, pull your abs in, pubic bone all the way to the diaphragm. Create that length, like I was saying earlier with those abductions. You want to stretch through that lumbar region of the spine, up into the thoracic. You do that by drawing the abs way in. Let's do one more shoulder press. And then flip onto your back. We're going to try to hold the same mechanical position with this body, this L position, but now into shoulder flexion. Join me and make sure that the arms stay nice and straight. Now with this one in particular, because it's challenging, you're going to, because you have weights and all the stretching that's occurring through the spine, as the arms flex back, yes, they're going to want to go wide. You need to resist that. You need to make sure that the arms stay in their lanes forward. Think of the arms being able to grace just the sides of the head. But perhaps that means it forces you to shallow your range of motion. Because if you're doing this, I don't like that. I would rather see you shallow your range of motion and keep your arms in their lanes through the entire time. That'll also give you a better indicator of what your natural range of motion with flexion is. So just something to consider. Keep your shoulders down, keep your wrists straight, keep your elbows straight. Try to keep the back of your neck flat to the floor. Pull your abs in. Let's do one more here. And then right back to that L sit with shoulder press. I will show you from the side so you can see a nice upright spine, what that looks like. So I'm sitting forward on my sit bones, drawing the abs way in. My head is staying back, my shoulders are down. As I'm pressing here, keep the wrists straight. It's another little thing, but if you bend the wrists, it likely means that the arms are actually moving forward, and the breaking of the wrist is to try to compensate like where that weight load is to keep it over the shoulder joint. Well, it's kind of complicated stuff, but keep your wrists straight. It's going to force the shoulder joint to properly stretch. You'll strengthen the rotator cuff, and you'll lengthen the rotator cuff at the same time by even just the indication of what's going on with your wrists. Let's go 10 more seconds here. Again, still squeezing the upper inner thighs together. Make sure you're tight through those quadriceps, sitting forward on those sit bones. And sit back here on our back for shoulder flexion. So here we are, and lifting back. Now, my legs are pretty straight here. I don't have a ton of tension through the back of my legs. It took me a long time to get there. But if that's not you, you simply bend the knees. That's okay. The focus is right now more on the upper back. So keep the arms. This is why I'm saying again, keep your arms in their lanes right now. Do not bend your elbows. Do not bend your wrists. Keep them straight. If it shallows your range of motion, fine, so be it. It gives you a reference point in terms of how good you are at flexion today. What we are doing is flexion. So tune into your body. Like, what is the limitation of your range of motion? If you can do a full range of motion, great, fantastic. That's wonderful. Just continue to work on strengthening the muscles and improving that flexion. Again, make sure the shoulders sit down. Draw the abs in. You should feel your entire spine flat to the floor. Flex the feet. Make sure the feet are not everting out. Let's go 5 more seconds here. So 1 more, and then relax it. We're going to grab a quick drink of water. I am thirsty because of talking. Hopefully you're thirsty because of effort. And let's get on our feet. So we've got a dumbbell shoulder squat. So standing nice and tall. To start, feet a little wider than shoulder width, turn the toes out, hands at the shoulders, and squat. Here we go. So as we squat, try not to go too quick through this. Maybe like a 1 or a 2 count down, a 1 or a 2 count up. Like the squat we were doing earlier, but with our arms up overhead, you want to make sure, I'll show you from the side here, that back maintains that kind of that neutral position. The pelvis stays neutral, it's not tilting forward. This causes an excessive arch. When this occurs, what you're doing is you're offsetting the tension from your glute, and you're actually throwing it into your below back. Not going to hurt you, but again, the whole idea of a squat is to really get those glute muscles firing, right? Get that butt to work. It's the butt that is lifting you up. It's not the low back that's lifting you up, okay? So again, if you have to shallow your range of motion, so be it. That's fine. We've got 20 more seconds here, so let's continue to squat. Now let's talk about the arms here, just real brief. You can see on the side, my forearms, I'm doing a pretty good job of staying vertical with the floor. They're not falling forward. Is it easier to hold your arms here? Yes, it's much easier. This forces your upper back muscles to vigorously contract. Is it more uncomfortable? Yeah, it is. It's harder, but keep your arms back. You're going to strengthen through that upper spine. Likewise, when you pull your arms back, your head wants to go forward. Don't let that happen. You want to maintain that stretch. All right, we're going to come out of that. Now we've got a shoulder squat hold. Sorry about that. You're not coming out of it. You're just holding now. So in this position for a full minute, draw your abs in, make sure that head stays back. So while we're doing the isometric here, it'll allow you to really reinforce that proper form through the upper back. So once again, as I'm in this position, as you're in this position, continually draw your arms back. Right? Get those forearms as vertical or perpendicular with the floor as possible. They're not internally rotating down. If this happens, the shoulder's going to come up, and it's going to affect the rest of the spine. All right? That's not what we want. We want to stay open. We want to stay broad through the front of the shoulders and chest. Just 10 more seconds here. Just hang out, pull the abs in, head, neck, shoulders back. Go ahead and relax that. We're going to do another corpse pose. Very complimentary, just simply to release the tension. Now this corpse pose, we're not actually going to hold any tension. I'm going to let your feet just naturally flop open and just relax. But I want you to take inventory. How flat are you to the floor with no muscular tension? What happens with the feet as you lie flat to the floor? Do the legs externally rotate excessively? Do the knees have to bend slightly? What about the arms? Can the arms just naturally fall to the side of your body? Or do the arms have to be here? right? These are little indications in terms of your own muscular tension. You can start tuning into this. How tight is your spine, right? If your legs are flying open in the most relaxed state possible, you're just literally lying on the floor. If your arms cannot relax at your sides, that indicates tension through your spine. For the legs, it indicates the low spine. For the arms, it indicates the upper spine. So just something to consider. But again, these movements will, in time, help to improve those resting length relationships. And trust me, if you improve resting length relationships and you maintain strength, it will guarantee the improvement of how you move and exercise, and life for that matter. All right, back on our feet. Let's do those squats. Hands at shoulders. Right here. Here we go. Up and down. We're going to go about just 45 seconds here on this one. And that's okay. Nice and upright. Again, broad to the shoulders. Wrist straight. Don't let them bend. I see that a lot on this. Again, the wrist bend, arms are going to fall forward. Everything's going to kind of go with it. You need to stay back. As you squat, I'm pretty wide on my feet here, so I would encourage that as well. As you squat, you are sitting back. You're not squatting down. Right? If you squat down, it's going to pull everything forward and it's going to collapse the joints that we're trying to maintain open and length with. So as you squat, you need to sit back. Now let's hold. Here we go. We're already holding. Again, draw the abs in. You can see my spine is in a nice flat position, neutral position, which means my hips are in a neutral position, which means I'm engaging my glutes properly. Again, you're doing the same things. So even if you're not this low and you're here, but everything is in proper mechanics as you see, that's great. You're doing it optimally. And then in time, as you get stronger, as you improve your mobility, right? You'll be able to go much, much lower and not have to deviate. But again, start tuning into your body. Where are you in terms of how you are positioned in space? So just hang out here, wrist straight, forearms vertical, head, neck back, shoulders down, abs in, squeeze glutes. Just really squeeze glutes. Squeeze your glutes, 5 seconds. Squeeze your glutes. Corpse pose. Here we go, line it back. Now let it go. So feet just in their lanes. Just try to relax the feet. Relax the back of the legs. Relax the hips. Relax your stomach. Relax the back of your shoulders. Let your arms fall. How flat do your arms get to the floor? How about the wrists even? Can the wrists just kind of flatten to the floor, or are they arched? Right? All these are little indicators of muscular tension, but they're also indicators of areas where you can take advantage and improve. So start just tuning into your body, start listening to your body, and learn something from it. We're going to go just 15 more seconds here. Just relax. Release the tension. You can relax your low back. Relax your jaw even. That'll relax the back of your neck. Relax your shoulders. That'll flatten the arms to the floor. And that's good. Let's get back on our feet. So we're going to do a standing knee extension, a little balance series here. So on the left foot here first, I want you to bring your right knee up. Let's have our hands on our hips because that'll give us an indicator of where we are in space with our hips. And then holding this position, it's just a knee extension. Go ahead, join if you haven't already. So as you do the knee extension here, my knee is in the same plane as the hip. That's optimal. But the most important thing is the hips remain level. If you're lifting the knee and it's causing your hip to cant up this way, your knee is too high. So drop the knee down with your hands on your hips so that they stay and feel level. And then go into that knee extension. So perhaps it looks like this. It's fine. As you lift that leg, I'll go back to where I need to do it. As you lift that leg with those hips level and extend the foot, make sure that the foot is staying in its lane. It's not externally rotating. You're not everting the foot. Again, if the whole foot turns open, you're shortening the muscles through the back of the hip versus lengthening the muscles of the back of the hip. Keep those legs forward. We're just going to go 5 more seconds on this side and then immediately on the other. Let's do one more. Now the other side. So with now the left leg up, standing nice and straight on that right side, extending that left knee. Now as I do the knee extension, I'm not dropping the knee. I'm keeping the knee up in the entire time. So if it means you start here, that's fine. Keep the knee in the same plane, however high up it is off the floor, as you go through a range of motion. So again, if you look like this, you're obviously starting with the knee too high. So again, find what works for you in terms of you being able to maintain neutral hip position and you're able to maintain the knee the same height from the floor throughout. You get 20 more seconds on this side. Again, make sure the foot does not externally rotate. What's going on with the hip? Is it canting up? We don't want that. So keep the hip down as you go through that knee extension. Just 10 more seconds. And then I'm going to cue what's up with that standing leg or the grounded leg. Let's do one more here. Good. Now stand on the left side. Stand nice and tall. Bring that right knee up. And then go ahead and extend that right knee, keeping the knee in that same plane the entire time. Now with the standing leg, I want the weight back on the heel, but push hard down on the toe. I want you to feel the arch in the foot. So if you have a tendency, if you were to ever look at your like shoe pattern or your wear pattern, and it's like all the weight load is on the outside of the foot, oftentimes it means like your hips and hip flexors and down the chain, the calves and the hamstrings, way too tight. This will correct for that. Even just literally standing on one foot and pushing really hard down on the toe. Because what it's doing is it's causing those muscles that are tight to release, while at the same time strengthening through the medial chain. So like that medial chain muscles of the leg. And in time, what that'll do is it'll correct for the foot pattern, the wear pattern. That'll change your gait. It'll make it walking actually easier because we have a template of how we're supposed to move. The further you deviate from that like biomechanical template, the harder just movement becomes. Other side. So right here, holding this and extend. So last minute here on this. This should feel pretty irritating through the ankle, and that's fine. Push down hard on that right big toe right now. Make sure your hips are level. But let's talk about the knee. I know it's late in the series, but make sure that the standing leg, that knee is remaining straight. You'll notice as you extend the left heel right now, as you go through that extension, your right knee wants to bend. Don't do that. I need you to maintain neutral hip position. When the knee bends, you're shifting how your hips are placed in space. That'll affect how the muscles are lengthening as you move through space. So even something as subtle as the standing leg knee must remain straight. Good news is that by pushing down hard on that big toe, I know you can feel your knee straighten. So that's where that cue comes in. Push down hard, really hard on your big toe. Let's do one more here. And that's good. Grab your dumbbells. We're going to be doing a crescent lunge hold with shoulder extension. So with their legs in their lanes and your toes facing forward, pull your abs in, and then extending the arms back. Go ahead, join. Obviously, my left foot is forward. Now I'm pushing hard down on my right toe. Push really hard down on your right toe. Pushing down hard on that right toe will help to straighten the back knee. Your back knee might feel straight, but it's probably not straight. You could probably straighten the back of your knee a little more. So again, just by pushing vigorously on the back toe, what it'll do is it'll help to straighten that knee joint. Now, with that back hip, I'll show you right here. Make sure that the foot is not turning open. Again, we want to strengthen the medial chain as much as the lateral chain. So outside of the leg, as much as inside of the leg, as much as back of the leg. So keeping the legs forward in their lanes and not letting external rotation occur at the hip or at the foot makes a big difference in terms of muscle engagement. So once you're in this position, draw the abs in. You can squeeze your glutes together and lift. Think of having a straight line from the back foot to the back of the shoulder or even the crown of the head. So make sure the head does not fall forward. Keep it back. Let's do one more here. And then standing tall, we got shoulder flexion this round. So standing upright, bring your arms nice and up, pulling the abs way in, and then lowering the arms back down. Now you'll notice my arms, hopefully you can see my arms in the frame, my arms remain straight throughout. So as I lift up, they're good, 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 good. But what I'm not doing is this. Don't do that. So like I was saying earlier, if you have to shallow how high you lift your arms right now with shoulder flexion, that's fine. I'd rather see you stop here than do this right now. Tune into your own mobility in terms of flexion. This is called flexion of the arm. What is your limitation on this right now? If you can use that as a reference point, perhaps it's here. And as you continue to improve by doing these exercises, and eventually you get to here, you'll know, like literally, oh yeah, I am more mobile now through my upper spine, through my shoulders, because I have a better range of motion. That's good. That you want that. I mean, that'll affect how you do shoulder presses, how you pick stuff up over your head, how you throw a ball, what have you. All right, let's do the right side now. So Feet forward in their lanes, push down hard on that back toe, and then shoulder extension. This is shoulder extension here. Shoulder extension does a really nice job of getting those upper back muscles to contract. They are shortening under tension. So take advantage of that. Squeeze your shoulder blades nice and tight together as you lift those arms back. Don't forget about that back foot. Push down on the toe and pull up on the kneecap. Haven't cued that yet, but pull up on the kneecap because that'll further help to straighten the knee. Don't bend your knee. Keep that back knee straight. Continue to lift here. We got 20 seconds. And then we'll be doing the shoulder press. Now the opposite movement here. Good. Squeeze your glutes. How about that back toe? How about that back kneecap? You're pulling up on it. Abs. Squeeze your shoulder blades. Let's do 5 more seconds here. Make sure the head does not come forward. 1 more. And good. With your dumbbells in hands, shoulder press. Stand nice and tall. See my forearms, how they remain vertical with the floor the entire time. Yours should as well. Here we go. Now, as you do your shoulder press, make sure your shoulders stay down. You're not shoulder pressing here. You're shoulder pressing here. There's a big difference. There's a big difference in terms of how you're strengthening through those upper back muscles here than here. You're doing this. Keep your shoulders down. Now, make sure as you keep your shoulders down, the arms don't come forward. How about the wrists? Keep your wrists straight. Little thing, but big thing, because it affects the shoulders. And that's exactly what we're trying to strengthen and lengthen right now. So keep your wrists straight. Keep your shoulders down. How about your abs? Like I was saying with the abduction earlier, you need to keep your abs drawn in, especially on the press. It should almost feel like you are sinking the ab vacuum with the lift of the arm together. Try to synchronize them together because that'll maintain a flat back. It'll make sure that your back actually decompresses as you go through the presses here. Let's do 1 more. And then right back to the crescent lunge. We're going to do left foot forward now. And point on that big toe really hard. Pull up on the kneecap, shoulder extension. And lift and squeeze your shoulder blades. Likewise, keep your wrists straight. Now you're going to notice it's a lot easier to keep your arms straight in this versus say the shoulder press or anything we do overhead. And again, that's because the muscles are shortening under tension versus lengthening under tension. You need to be good at both. I mean, regardless. Even if this feels easier, and it's like, oh yeah, upper body, I could kind of do this all day. So what? You still want to take advantage of that, overflex the muscles, squeeze the shoulder muscles, but that also means that these movements overhead are just as important, even though they might be a little more difficult, as the movements here with shoulder extension that are perhaps a little bit easier for you. You got 10 more seconds here, so how about push down harder on that back right toe? How about straighten that right kneecap by pulling up on it? Let's squeeze both those glutes together, and then hold right here as you squeeze your shoulders back. Really squeeze your shoulders back. And go ahead and let that go. We got shoulder flexion. So standing nice and tall, arms come up, pull the abs in. Arms are not going wide on this. Again, if you have to shallow your range of motion, listen to your body. Where is your range of motion today? Tune into that. Learn something about yourself today, literally. And then from there, you can work on improving that as we go through these series of movements over the next, hopefully, several weeks. Pull the abs in, but hopefully not forever. I would like to get back to work at some point. Keep your shoulders down, keep your arms straight, keep your wrists straight. Make sure the head stays back. The head's not falling forward. Pull your abs in, squeeze your glutes. What's going on with your hips? Oftentimes as people go through shoulder flexion here, the hips go all over the place. Not you. We got 5 more seconds or 1 more. And right foot forward now. Little crescent lunge hold. Here we go. Make sure the hips are facing forward again, not turning open. Draw the abs in and then lift back. How about that head? As the arms go back, make sure the head does not come forward. You got to keep that head back. The head is attached to the cervical spine, and that's your spine. So what you're doing here will affect down the chain. Likewise, let's go back to that foot. What you're doing at the foot will literally affect up the chain into the hip. If the hip is then affected, it's going to affect the neck. It's all a kinetic chain, and that's what I'm kind of constantly pointing out here, is you tuning in and becoming aware of where you are in space. I call that proprioception, just a fancy word of body awareness, but that's what you're trying to improve, is literally your body awareness. When you raise an arm, where is your arm? What's going on with your shoulder? Right? When you lift a leg, what's going on with your hips? Right? Are you in control and are you aware of your body in real time? Let's do 1 more here. Squeeze. And shoulder press. All right. Stand nice and tall. Squeeze your glutes. Pull your abs way in. Draw the abs way in on the shoulder press. Try to keep the wrists straight. Try to keep the forearms, I'll show you from the side here. Try to keep your forearms vertical with the floor. Now you can see as I'm pressing here, obviously I'm really pulling those abs in because I want to maintain that length through this part of my spine. Drawing the abs in helps with that pursuit. But again, as I pull the abs in, don't let the shoulders shrug up. You might notice that when you really try to vigorously draw the abs in, the shoulders want to elevate. Learn to resist that. Pull the abs and keep your shoulders down. And that's double hard because you're trying to raise your arms up overhead and they kind of attach to the shoulders and they want to pull the shoulders up. But this is why I want you to strengthen your upper back, strengthen your rotator cuff. And you do that by keeping your shoulders down while forcing the arms to stretch up overhead. It seems counterintuitive, but it works. Just keep working towards improving these muscle functions. Let's do one more here. Very nice. Set your dumbbells down. We are on our backs. We're going to hold a little butterfly with shoulder flexion. We're just letting tension go. This should feel quite nice. So butterfly your feet together with your knees flopping open. Just relax, and then your arms are back. Kind of like that relaxed corpse pose that we did earlier in the hour. Same idea here. So how straight can your arms fall in a as relaxed position as possible? You are trying to get your spine as flat to the floor as possible. Now make sure your low back is flat on the floor. As you abduct out, you're going to notice that your low back really wants to arch on this. I need you to correct for that. So tuck your hips under so you can feel that lumbar tailbone sit flush with the floor. And then from there, you just let the knees flop open. So pulling your abs in a little bit, but again, we're not vigorous on muscle contractions right now. You're just kind of tuning in. Hey, like how much can the upper back stretch and how much can the low back, the psoas, the hip flexor in particular, how much can that muscle release, allowing the legs to abduct without really any effort? We're going to come out of that and we got a down dog. So kind of a nice posterior stretch. I really actually do like down dogs. As you do a down dog here, what's important is that your spine stays in a flat position. Your spine does not look like this. So if you need to bend your knees to get your back perfectly flat, please do so. You can see how I'm bending my knees. My back looks nice and flat in this position. So you can start here. Keep your shoulders down. We're not protracting right now. Keep your shoulders nice and squeezed together. And then try to tilt. This is tucking my pelvis. Try to tilt your pelvis forward while squeezing your shoulder blades. Think of you shortening the distance between the back of the hips and the back of the shoulders. Tough to do, but it's certainly effective at lengthening through that anterior portion of the spine. Anterior meaning front of the spine. So once again, squeeze your shoulders back, tilt your pelvis forward, and then if you got that, go ahead and start pushing back the knees. But push down on your big toes. Pushing down on your big toes will actually release the calf muscles just a little bit more. And go ahead, come out of that. We got a little bear hug, kind of nice. Just remember which arm is over the first time, and then squeezing your knees together. The whole idea is to get the entire skeletal system flat to the floor on this one. So tilt your pelvis. So think about actually trying to arch your low back right now. You're not going to be able to arch your low back right now because you're drawing your knees, which is countering any arch that you would otherwise be capable of doing. So while you pull your knees in, squeeze your shoulders back and down, reach the crown of the head towards the wall behind you to flatten the back of the neck, and then try to arch your low back. Again, that will help to flatten, decompress the entire spine flat to the floor, or as flat to the floor as you can be today. And in time, if you're not totally flat to the floor, you will be. Just continue to work on these movements, on these types of stretches, which will, in time, decompress the spine and improve all your muscle length relationships. All good things, all things that you want. You want to be able to move freely, fluidly, and easily. Things, activities, exercises like this will help with that pursuit. Let's go ahead and release that. We got a child pose. So once again, we're going to be tilting the pelvis, but keep your shins and knees together. By the way, if your knees kill you on this, just continue to hold a bear, just as you were. But otherwise, squeeze your ankles together. I want them together. Do not let them flop open. And then with the ankles squeezed together, squeeze your knees together, squeeze your upper and thighs together. Try to tilt your pelvis forward, not tuck, tilt. And then let your arms reach forward. We are going to be protracting the shoulders right now. So one of the few opportunities today that I'm giving you to let the shoulder lift up and then just try to flatten yourself to the floor.
Now the arms ideally are straight because you have full shoulder flexion here. Now as you tilt, so again, tilting the pelvis, continue to squeeze the upper inner thighs together on that tilt. Just 5 more seconds here. Go ahead and let that go. We've got that supine again. So here we roll, just like so. Let the arms go back. Make sure that low back sits nice and flush. So perhaps you've got a slight tuck under of the hips. Keep your arms as straight as they can with minimal tension. Try to get the neck flat to the floor, much like the low back. So you might notice your low back has a slight arch, kind of like your neck, how that has a slight arch. And you just have these natural curves through the spine. We are trying to counter those curves slightly. The countering is causing the stretching to occur. That's essentially why I'm constantly flat. Again, there's naturally an S curve. There's naturally like that curve, that extension through the cervical spine. But by mitigating that curve, you're causing length. And that's good because you do want to be able to decompress your vertebra, the spine, all the bones of your spine, to lengthen and to release muscular tension, just in general. It's a good thing. So just hang out here for another 5 seconds, and let's come out of that. We got a down dog. So keep the back nice and flat on this. We're not flexing the spine. If anything, you're trying to slightly arch the spine. Tough to do in a down dog. But again, you're trying to think of squeezing the shoulders back as you tilt the pelvis down to shorten the distance between the back of the hips and the back of the shoulder. And then if you've got that and you want to lengthen through the back of the legs, great. But lengthening through the back of the legs shouldn't cause this to happen. Because if you round and you let your tailbone tuck under, your shoulders are going to protract. It's the kinetic chain. Your hips affect your shoulders and vice versa. This should be kind of obvious that by this point, even just throughout this workout, that yes, something that happens here does have an effect here. My point being, squeeze your shoulders back and down and try to tilt your pelvis forward because we're trying to release the front of the spine while doing a down dog. And then if you can do that, then start straightening the knees. Just 5 more seconds here. Go ahead and let that go. How about a bear hug? Just remember which arm was over. So alternate sides. We're trying to get the entire skeletal system flat to the floor. So squeezing the ankles together, squeezing the knees together, squeezing the upper inner thighs together, drawing the abs in, really draw the abs in. No joke, draw the abs in. And then try to arch your low back. But it's not going to arch because you're countering it with the strength of your arms and shoulders pulling back and down. As you pull your shoulders down, you give your neck an opportunity to stretch. So take advantage of that. Take your head, the crown of the head, reach it towards the wall behind you as you squeeze your shoulder blades back and down. But what happened down the chain? What's going on with the ankles? How about the knees? What about those inner thighs? I know it's a lot to think about. But again, in time, as you start to learn about how your body, just muscles naturally fire, you'll be able to tune into all of these things more effectively in real time. It won't be it'll be just all your concentration on just your ankles so that you forgot everything else. You'll be able to kind of hold everything at the same time and be more or less aware of what's happening. Let's go and do that child's pose. So here we roll. I'll show you from the front. Squeeze your ankles together. Squeeze your knees together. Squeeze your upper inner thighs together. We are tilting our pelvis forward. Again, with those anchor points, flatten that back to the floor and then start reaching your arms. You can protract. So shoulders can creep up. Keep your arms nice and straight. And if you can present your forehead to the floor, great. And we're just going to relax about another 30 seconds. So just hang out here. Again, you can continue to try to tilt the pelvis. But as you tilt the pelvis, squeeze the upper inner thighs together. And I don't expect you to have movement in this. It's just the engagement of the muscle. Because even though we're in an isometric and we're not moving in space, you holding these muscles in a contracted state forces muscles to mildly release and lengthen, particularly to the back of the hips and that low back as you tilt your pelvis forward and squeeze those inner thighs. And with that, we will call that a workout. So thanks for joining me once again. I do intend to have a new series of exercises for next Wednesday and Saturday. So hopefully you can join me then. Thanks again for today's workout.